turn now to the Sunday Roundtable, and joining us this morning, Democratic political analyst Marianne Marsh and Republican political analyst Rob Gray. Have you guys had a chance to take a breath since Tuesday, Wednesday?
No, I think we all need sleep.
I know, right? And oxygen.
Yeah.
Andrea Campbell was at the table. Marianne, let me start with you. What pops out as the AG-elect?
Well, she said a lot of great things, but I think the thing that heartens me most as someone from the 413 is that Maura, Andrea, everyone on the ticket really traveled around the state. And her comments about the fact that having been a Boston City Councilor, she saw how much money that Boston got and how under-resourced, as she would say, other parts of the state are. And so making sure that everybody in Massachusetts has the opportunity to benefit from all the resources Massachusetts has to lift everybody up is a good thing.
Rob?
I think the interesting thing is the power of her personal story. It's far, far different than the rest of the Democrats elected statewide. So I think she's going to have a unique perspective to offer over the next 4 years.
She called it the lived experiences, yeah.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly. And it's something that she says she's not going to be running away from, that she owns completely. Maura Healey, as predicted, won big. If, and this is a giant if, the GOP had offered a more moderate candidate instead of going Trump, could the Republicans have kept the governor's office or, for that matter, gained more seats across the country, Rob?
I think probably the only candidate would have been Charlie Baker. I think if he had run and she had run, he probably would have beaten her. But if he had run, she probably wouldn't have gotten in the race and wouldn't be the governor-elect today. But here's the thing. You can have the best Indy 500 car out there, but if there's not gas in the tank, it's not going anywhere. And gas in the tank in politics is money. You can't just have a good candidate. You have to have a comprehensive campaign that's very well funded in all facets. And Republicans are a long, long way from that right now.
Could a more moderate Republican have made a little bit of a difference or a lot of a difference, do you think,
I'm not
Marianne?
sure Charlie Baker and Maura Healey would have gone against each other, but if they had, it would have been back to the 90s with some of the best slugfests we've ever seen. Maura Healey would have prevailed absent that no matter what because she has the record. Everybody knows her. She's been a statewide candidate multiple times, her policy positions and all that. And any stripe of Republican couldn't win this year because the two big issues were abortion and democracy. Please tell me like a hand, I could fit on this hand how many Republicans actually support abortion. None of them spoke up for democracy except for Liz Cheney and Adam Kinzinger. So those two issues mattered, and Republicans were MIA.
The now governor-elect has said for nearly a year the tax cuts are her top priority. It looks like children, seniors, renters, low-income families are the goals of those cuts. Some were on Charlie Baker's unfulfilled list. So, Marianne, let me start with you. Do you think tax cuts for high-end earners like short-term capital gains will be on her list?
No. I mean, question one will go into effect, and I think it's important, and Andrea Campbell said it, the legislature needs to honor what the voters voted for. Those tax cuts in that question, period, full stop. Maura's going to keep her campaign promises. All of those things, low income, middle income, children, all of that, because she wants to lift everybody up. I don't think people are going to leave this state who make that kind of money on that kind of tax cut on question one. And I will point to the cranberry farmer who said, who makes more money than anyone ever realized and said, I don't expletive care about $40,000. So that says a lot.
Listen, a lot of the tax cuts in that economic development package that were dropped by the legislature when they had previously agreed to them with the Republican governor were related to the state's economic climate and helping the state recover from COVID. It's a shame that they were dropped. It would be nice if Maura Healey added them back in. But we have one-party rule now. So the inclination to overtax and overspend among Democrats is back in play. We don't know if Maura Healey will stand up to that dynamic or not.
You mentioned question one already. Question 1 and 4 were the most controversial items on the Massachusetts ballot and took the longest to tabulate. Let's start with question 1, taxing millionaires. What's your prediction, not so much on whether it will work, but how do you think it's going to affect our lives in the next decade, Rob?
Well, invest in moving companies, moving rich people down to Florida. I mean, that's the bottom line. It's going to cause flight out of this state, no question about it. You look at the returns, and you had votes against this in very high-income communities, but also in very low-income anti-tax communities. But those very high-income communities, the people who work there and in those businesses are going to vote with their feet.
Do you really think that's going to happen, Marianne?
No. I mean, whether they're going to join the crypto kings in Miami who are bankrupt now, people move to Massachusetts for lots of reasons. Tax policy was never one of them. Okay, so high income earners, they're not going to leave schools and everything else here that made their businesses, made their fortunes just over that tax cut. I mean, that's the reality of it. And I think the problem with question one was people who weren't the super wealthy, but who bought homes, bought real estate, and bought it 10, 20, 30 years ago. And I think that's where question one was a little dishonest about what that would mean to people who are middle income, high middle income, retirement eggs, right, in that house that they weren't being completely.
All right, to question four, bottom line, Marianne, do you think this makes the roads safer?
Yes, and yes, because everyone has to go to driver's ed, everyone has to get a permit, everyone has to get a license, everyone has to have insurance. Yes.
Unhesitatingly, Rob.
No.
I
mean, this question was about wokeness. It was not about public safety. And the interesting thing on the vote is it exposes a huge divide. If you look at where the voters are on this versus where the legislature is, the legislature passed this by 54%. The voters only passed it by 8%. The legislature is way to the left of the voters of Massachusetts. That's what we learned on Tuesday night.
You got to tell that to all the police chiefs. They were all for it.
A handful.